I have this weird habit. As I walk around cities, here in Amsterdam or anywhere else, when there's cars parked on the side of the road, I peek in them to see if they're manual transmission or an automatic. Now, there's some cars that you know are automatic or electric cars, but if there's any doubt, I try to see, is the car automatic or manual? And why are there still so many manuals around Europe? After all, it's 2021, and in North America, the manual is essentially dead. So how do I still see so many of them around here? Why are manual transmissions so popular in Europe and the rest of the world, frankly, except for the US and Canada? Let's hop into a manual green wheels car and see if we can unpack this a bit. Now, I'm a car guy, but shamefully I have to admit I haven't driven many manual transmission cars in my life. You know, I grew up back in the US, and manual transmissions are becoming essentially an exotic over there, and I didn't know many people with manual transmission cars for me to practice on. I always learned to drive an automatic, and you know, the couple times that I did try to drive a manual, I failed miserably, and I was kind of scarred by it, and I never wanted to try it again. And frankly, in the US, 99% of cars are automatic, so you really don't have to learn how to drive a manual. You don't really have to know. And so, you know, that was kind of the world I lived in. Even though I was a car guy, I always kind of wanted to learn it someday, but there was no priority to do so. I knew outside of the US and Canada, manual transmissions were more popular. In fact, globally, manual transmissions are still more popular than automatics. But, you know, I didn't really think much about it on a day-to-day basis. And then I moved to Amsterdam, and like I said at the beginning, I started looking at all of the cars on the street, and I noticed most of them were manual. Even cars that I wouldn't expect back in the States to be manual, or back in the States they wouldn't even offer a manual transmission. Cars here were manual, so some SUVs, even some more luxury cars like Volvos. I was even surprised to see those as manuals. Back in the States where you did have a manual, it was either a performance car or a very cheap car. So it was really surprising for me to see all different kinds of cars with a manual transmission here in Amsterdam. And this is pretty common across Europe and, like I said, across the globe as well, outside of the US and Canada. Quick side note, I'm obviously not in my normal car. I'm paying to use a green wheel share car just to film this video in an authentic manual transmission vehicle. So if you could hit that like button and consider subscribing, that would really help me out. So why manual? Why have 3 pedals and have to row through your own gears? What are all the reasons? Well, I've put together a list that I think are some of the reasons why manuals are so popular outside of the US and Canada, and you know, so popular here in Europe. So let's jump into it. Well, for one, it's probably not choice. Depending on the type of car you get, you know, if it's a cheaper model, sometimes manual is the only option you have. Manuals are still cheaper to produce, cheaper to manufacture, cheaper to install. And so if you got a bare bones car, manual might be the only option you have. So initial cost is a really big factor, and I think it's probably one of the most important reasons, and probably the most prevalent reason why manual transmission vehicles are more popular outside of the US and Canada. Especially in developing markets, the difference in cost for manual transmission versus automatic is huge. Here in Europe, in a lot of cars, it can be about €1,000, which is a significant cost when you're looking at a car. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, cars in the Netherlands are particularly expensive. So anywhere you can save costs, you know, that's an easy way to go. So I think cost is probably the most popular reason why manual transmissions are so popular. In the US and Canada, generally cars are kind of an appliance. It's something you have to have, it's something you need to use, and if you can pay a little bit extra to have something that makes that task of driving a little bit easier, most people will do it. And that's kind of been the trend in the US and Canada. So, you know, most people have opted to not have a manual transmission because of the convenience of an automatic. But in these emerging markets, you know, that convenience and that luxury isn't something that people can afford to pay for. The second thing I think that plays a key factor is ongoing costs. So manual transmissions used to get better fuel economy than their equivalent automatic transmission vehicles. I won't go into the details as to why, but back in the day, manual transmissions almost always got better fuel economy. Now with modern vehicles, the difference is negligible, if any. In a lot of cases, actually automatics are more fuel efficient than manuals, but nonetheless, ongoing costs for manuals, you know, compared to like a dual clutch transmission where you have expensive maintenance every few years, manual transmissions are relatively simple and have relatively low maintenance costs. Maybe a clutch every now and then. The construction of these transmissions are much more simple than many automatics, especially dual clutch transmissions. The next main reason that I think these transmissions are popular is because outside of performance cars, generally in Europe and in around the world, cars have a lot less power. So it's not uncommon to see a car with less than 100 horsepower. Even something like this Golf wagon has just over 100 horsepower. So having a manual transmission allows you to control the gears and squeeze just a little bit more power and acceleration and control that acceleration even though you have a less powerful engine. You know, automatics tend to upshift quickly because their priority is fuel economy and not so much performance. But with a manual transmission, the driver is in control and the driver can choose, am I prioritizing fuel economy and I'm upshifting quicker? Or am I prioritizing acceleration and I need to speed up quickly? And they can hold those gears a little bit longer. So when you have a less powerful engine, it's kind of helpful to have a manual transmission and have that control, as I'll demonstrate now. Back in the day, acceleration in a manual transmission car used to be faster than automatics. So most performance cars were manual for that reason. Even Ferraris, Lamborghinis, the acceleration numbers were quicker in a manual. Nowadays, that's not true. And in fact, automatics and dual clutch automatics are actually faster than manuals. And you're starting to see a trend where even in supercars, they're ditching the manual because frankly, it's slower. And only in enthusiast models like Porsche, do they still offer a manual as a $0 option just because people want it, but it actually isn't faster. But in a small engine car, having that control over the gears really helps squeeze that, a little bit better acceleration out of that small engine. The next main reason that I think manual transmission cars are so popular in Europe and other markets is because it's just what people kind of get used to. So a lot of people here in the Netherlands, in Europe, around the world, they learn to drive on a manual transmission vehicle, and then that just becomes habitual. It becomes something that they're used to, and while they could drive an automatic, they're used to driving a manual. It kind of forces a bit more discipline and a bit more awareness. You're one with the car, you're more in control of the car, and not only are you paying attention to the road, you're also paying attention to your gears, to your clutch, and it kind of forces you to become a more disciplined driver. I've talked to a few different people who have grown up driving manual transmissions, and I asked them, would you drive anything different? And they swear by it. They swear by the manual transmission, and it just becomes a habit that they're used to. So those are some of the key reasons that I think manuals are so popular outside of the US and Canada. There's no doubt that the manual is dying. With the rise in popularity of electric vehicles, with hybrids, plug-in hybrids, the manual transmission is slowly being phased out. In markets like Europe, where fuel economy and emission standards are so important, plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles are starting to take over, and the manual transmission will go away with the rise in popularity of those alternative propulsion vehicles. There will be a generation of people who don't know what a manual transmission is, just like there's a generation of people who don't know what rolling up the window actually means. So there you have it. Those are the main reasons why I think manual transmissions are so popular in Europe and around the world outside of the US and Canada. Did I miss a reason? Do you prefer manual or automatic? Let me know in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. Thanks for watching.